This is the exclusive trillion-dollar company club. It's made up of some of tech's biggest giants. And for a moment on May 30th, this company, NVIDIA. It's not a household name, but one day in late May, NVIDIA added nearly $184 billion in market value. That's a single-day sum, worth more than other companies in the semiconductor industry, and just a fraction of its total value. The company's record sales have been fueled by an emerging technology.
We're the world's engine for AI.
Here's how an under-the-radar graphics processor is cashing in on the AI craze, and what's next for its strategy.
Excellent!
When NVIDIA was founded in 1993, it established itself as a leader in graphic processing units, or GPUs, for video games. The company's powerful chips made images crisper and less choppy.
The nature of our technology is to accelerate multimedia applications for the consumer.
In the years since, the company's chips have become an indispensable part of many other products, from PCs to cars to robots. NVIDIA made a pivotal decision in 2006 when it started allowing software developers to play with its GPUs.
If you want to be a trillion-dollar company, you can't do just one thing. It's kind of like opening a door. And once they opened that door, people started to tinker.
One of those expansions was cryptocurrency mining. The company's GPUs could handle the large amount of computational power the task required. Business flourished. Rising sales from the crypto rush helped NVIDIA pass rival Intel in market value in 2020. But sales fell as crypto crashed and the gaming industry slumped. Still, the chipmaker was starting to see another frontier boom: generative AI. In May, sales of chips for the data centers needed to power AI were up by 14%, thanks in large part to the growing need for NVIDIA chips in AI calculations. For NVIDIA, that was a decade in the making. The company's chips broke through in the AI community in 2012 with a neural network called AlexNet.
We saw early on, about a decade or so ago, that this way of doing software could change everything.
It was very futuristic. It was very uncertain at that point. Nobody knew how big AI was going to be. They made that big bet at a time when a lot of other competitors were not making that kind of bet.
We risked everything to pursue deep learning.
NVIDIA chips are suited for powering AI because of their ability to do lots of complex computations simultaneously. Traditional processing units can't do that as quickly, and other GPUs, like those from Intel and AMD, haven't gained major market share in AI computing.
If you think about how graphics work. Your monitor, your computer monitor, has a lot of pixels, thousands of pixels on it. And your computer needs to calculate at any given time what each of those pixels need to look like. It was discovered fairly quickly after NVIDIA kind of opened up the door for people to use its chips for other things, that they were actually really good at the kind of mathematics that underpins artificial intelligence.
In late 2022, AI exploded with the public release of OpenAI's ChatGPT, and NVIDIA's stock skyrocketed. While companies like Google, Microsoft, and Amazon battle it out in the AI race, NVIDIA is raking in the cash. That's because its chips power most of them.
For NVIDIA, it's a bonanza. All of these folks who are competing to get a slice of the generative AI pie need NVIDIA.
In 2018, the division that focuses on AI computation made up less than half of the company's sales. By 2022, it was the majority.
It went from Wall Street expectation of $7 billion to NVIDIA saying actually going to make $11 billion. And so that really opened people's eyes. It was a real statement that this generative AI craze that everybody's talking about is more than just a hype cycle.
But that success is creating a different problem for the company: supply.
The demand is literally from every corner of the world.
GPUs are, at this point, considerably harder to get than drugs.
The company's supply chain hasn't been able to keep pace.
The chip manufacturing cycle is such that you can't just immediately make more of these things like today if you want them.
The company says it has filled out some of its supply.
We are working on both supply today for this quarter, but we have also procured a substantial amount of supply for the second half.
But the chip's global demand has also caught the company in the crosshairs of increasing tensions between the US and China. Last year, the company said $400 million of its quarterly sales could be subject to new US chip licensing requirements for China. In response, NVIDIA began offering an alternative chip to customers in China. Despite some roadblocks, the chip industry has its eyes on NVIDIA's success.
They're still riding this boom. It's nowhere near done. The real question is whether companies can build huge businesses that are based on that artificial intelligence capability.
Hi, this is Kieran from VIA again, and this evening we're going to talk about this company called NVIDIA. Now, before I start, I just want to make sure that the slides, the sound, everything is clear from your perspective. And I'm going to share slide now. And ladies and gentlemen, if you are able to see the projected slide, and if you are able to hear my voice clearly, is it okay? Just type 1 in the chat. Yep, just to make sure that everything is okay. Okay, looks great. So before I start, I would like to thank CNBC for creating this video so that I can play in front of you, and all copyrights all belongs to CNBC and all credits goes to CNBC. So they have really presented a very interesting short video, 5 minutes video about NVIDIA. Yeah, and of course, the current CEO of NVIDIA. So let's get started, right? Now, by the way, we came across NVIDIA about a couple of years ago. I mean, the company has been around for a while. It's just that it caught our attention somewhere in year 2021, as you can see in the bottom part of this slide. And the reason we are interested in NVIDIA because we find it's almost in every PC, and we find that in the long run, right, perhaps this company may be a good investment. So in year 2021, during our Value Investing Academy online symposium, that was the very first symposium that we first started sometime during endemic stage. So we talked about this NVIDIA. So that was the very first time. Yeah, and if you want to go into detail about what did we discuss about NVIDIA way back in 2021, what you can do is you can go to this youtube.com/Value Investing Academy. And just by scrolling down, you go to that website, you scroll down, you should be able to see this segment, right, called VIA Deep Dive Series. Where we talk about all the companies, they are very interesting. They're up and coming topics that many people are interested about, which includes tonight. Yep, and once you reach that segment, VIA Deep Dive series, you just need to click play all. Yeah, because in this part, you only see a couple of videos. So when you click play all, the whole list pops up. Yep, and you just need to scroll down and locate this video 47, which is over here. Yep, so you click on it, you'll see something like this. Yeah, which is our symposium. So you don't really have to pay. And during that symposium, we talk about 4 companies. There are 4 speakers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and Reina over here talks about NVIDIA. Yeah, so that was when we first started to be interested in this company called NVIDIA. And what happens was during that time when we talk about this, the date was somewhere, right? Somewhere around 3rd December 2021. And during that time, it just happened that the price was 306 and the PE ratio is 100. Yeah, so in case some of you do not understand what is this term called PE ratio, maybe I just do a reiteration. So PE, right, stands for price earnings ratio. Earnings ratio. So when I explain this, Hillary don't have to explain it again. So price to earning ratio, yeah, the numerator, right, will be the share price. Yeah, that means the price per share, which is the share price, as well as the earnings. Earnings, that means the profit if you buy 1 share of the company. Yeah. So if PE equals to 100, what does it mean? It simply means that it's 100 divided by 1. Now, it also means that for every dollar of earnings per share that a company earns in 1 year, for every dollar, right, the stock market is paying $100, which also means that it takes about 100 years to break even. Yeah. So even though at this point in time we discovered that the NVIDIA is a good company, but we find it too expensive. So PE equals to 100. So when a company is a good business, but you buy at the wrong price, you may turn a good business into a bad investment decision. So of course, if we discourage people from buying, we say it's a good company, but it's too expensive. But remember, nobody knows what happened. Will the share price move? Will the share price go up? We're not sure. Sideways, we're not sure. Down, we're not sure. But for a company that's overvalued, over time, when the market recognizes that it's too expensive, people tend to start to sell stocks. So in this case, it's just by chance, right? People recognize that, oh, it's too expensive. So they start to sell stocks. So the stocks went from 306 over here down to 64. Yeah. So as the share price dropped, which is the numerator drop, you realize that the PE also dropped from 100 to 39. So how much drop is that? That's about 79% drop, almost 80%. Now, I'm not very sure who bought the stocks at the peak, but whoever that bought at the peak, I think it's a painful process if they hold on to the stock until this point. So in reality, when a share price drops, people tend to cut loss. Yep. So it creates a vicious cycle where the share price keeps dropping because people cut loss. Until somebody, right, at this point, they keep holding on to a stock. And I'm not very sure how many. Yeah. So the interesting thing is the share price dropped by 79%. And of course, subsequently, if you refer back to the video done by CNBC, this AI craze, ChatGPT, people start talking about AI. Oh, NVIDIA is part of this AI movement. People start to jump in. Now, remember, these people predominantly are not investors. As long as they hear something hot, right, and sexy, they will just jump in and buy. And it further pushed the share price from right at the bottom all the way, right, to this afternoon's share price, which is 10th of July, 425. Now, bearing in mind that right now the PE ratio is 218, is even higher than the previous 100. Can you see the height? Yep, it simply means that for every dollar of earnings per share, if you buy 1 share of the company, people are paying $218, which means that it takes about 218 years to break even. Wow, so now the question is, for those people who bought at 425, now in order for them to make money, they have to wait for someone who is going to pay more than 425, 430, 440, 450, 500. Yeah, but whether will this group of people appear, we are not sure. Yeah, maybe not. But for value investors at PE 218, it seems to be on the high side. Yeah, so at this point, yeah. But which also means that as of this point, the stock market has already built in the expectation. Yeah, which is why they do not mind paying $218 for every dollar of earnings per share. Yeah. So when the share price go up, people are started to be interested in the news surrounding this NVIDIA. And one of the piece of news is by Business Insider, and talks about Cathy Wood. So Cathy Wood, ARK Invest, they sold most of its NVIDIA stock before the rally, yeah, which added 585 billion in the stock market. In other words, if Cathy Wood didn't sell her ARK fund, right, they make money. But in fact, she sold off most of it before the share price go up. Yeah, and it can be reflected in the long-term return of ARK fund. Now, if you look at this S&P 500, yeah, S&P 500, which is this blue line, right? You can see that this blue line is higher than Cathy Wood's ARK ETF, which is at the bottom. Of course, this is the part during the bull run, right? But overall, from this point to this point, S&P 500, right, yeah, beats ARK ETF's return. So what does it mean? It simply means that if you invest in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, you will perform almost 3 times better than Cathy Wood. Yeah, so sometimes we don't have to be a genius, right, to be a very good investor. Yeah, and Warren Buffett has highly recommended a low-cost S&P 500 index fund. Yeah, so never jump onto a hype. Yeah, of course, other than Cathy Wood, there are many other news. You just need to put NVIDIA news. You come up with all sorts of things. This one 2 days ago. Yeah, NVIDIA stock is a great way to play AI. Wow, the words that they use, right, play. Instead of investing to play AI. And Motley Fool, right, is NVIDIA stock a good buy now? So if you look at all these news, they are available on internet. Every time when there's a new hot thing, they will start to jump in and then talk about it, whether is it a good buy and so on. So we want to look at it from a very scientific, a value investing angle, right? Whether is NVIDIA, number one, is it a good business? This is very important because we've done it a couple of years ago. Then the next one, right, is it really a value buy? Yeah, is it a cheap stock right now? Because if it's a good company, you buy the wrong price, we may end up losing money. Yeah. So with that, we're going to go deep dive into NVIDIA and AI tonight. But before that, I'm just going to help Hillary to, talk about this disclaimer. So remember, as usual, you just bear me for the next 10 seconds, right? Yeah, so remember the purpose of tonight's case study, which is NVIDIA, is solely to illustrate the application of value investing methodology and various valuation methods in which we illustrate in the context of a real-life company, which is NVIDIA tonight. So remember, under no circumstances does any information provided in tonight's case study represent a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any stock. So remember, we do not take into account your individual characteristic, profile, or risk appetite of any given investor. And remember, in no event shall VIA or me and Hillary be liable to any one of you, guests, or third party for any damages of any kind out of the content shared here. So remember, neither My Canadian Investments Private Limited or VIA nor me and Hillary are operator affiliated by any broker, dealer, or licensed financial advisor. Finally, so I'm going to hand my time over to Hillary, in which she has put a lot of hard work. Yeah, so can we give Hillary a round of applause? Yay! Okay.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Welcome back to our deep dive series, and tonight we'll look into NVIDIA. So, in our previous investigation into NVIDIA, which was being nicely done by Raina, tonight it will be merely an update on what's NVIDIA up to for the next few months or even years, because Raina has a very good deep dive into the background of NVIDIA. So tonight is merely to look at the future of NVIDIA, which is their future plan. So with that, let's jump right into NVIDIA and AI. Okay, so why we decided to do NVIDIA is because that the chips of NVIDIA is being used in ChatGPT. So that's the reason why the stock prices risen up. If you have checked previously during the first ride, it was because during that time it was due to the blockchain, when it was not even in the winter, it was a hype for the blockchain. So that's why the share price of NVIDIA increases, because some of the chips are being used into the blockchain to mine those Bitcoins, Ethereum coins as such. But then when the blockchain winter came, the share price plunges. And now there's another rise again, is because of this ChatGPT, the generative AI. So another thing is that when we saw this news that NVIDIA actually acquired another AI startup, so this one, it shrinks the machine learning models. So here you might be wondering, what does this actually mean? Which is why we decided to do this deep dive tonight. And also, they also invest in another AI startup. And with that, we wanted to know that what AI startup that NVIDIA actually invested in, because it seems like NVIDIA is moving towards AI. And with that, how will this investment help to shape the future of the company? So with that, we'll move on to find out more about the company. But before that, let's do a quick recap so that we just do a quick, simple recap of what NVIDIA is. If some of you might find that, maybe I don't want to watch the previous one, but this one, it'll be a very simple description of what the company is. Okay, so this one is actually an American technology company where they design graphic processing units known as GPUs for various visual-related applications like the graphics, or in short, it's a graphic card. And they currently offer AI-driven solutions. So this we will also explore more in this deep dive later. And this is what a GPU roughly looks like. So it's kind of like a graphic card. And it's actually used in various computing platforms, which is being listed here. And as the video shown by CNBC is being founded in 1993 by 3 computer scientists. One of them is the CEO, which is Jensen Huang. And it launches its IPO in 1999. And this is their ticker symbol, NVDA. Okay, so let's have a recap of the semiconductor ecosystem. So NVIDIA is under the fabless, which is known as the chip design. So here they only design the chip. They don't manufacture the chip. So all those chip manufacturing, they work hand in hand with another company under the semiconductor ecosystem known as foundry, which is the chip fabrication. And next, if you combine chip design and chip fabrication or manufacturing together, this part is known as IDM, Integrated Device Manufacturer. And the representative for this part is under Intel. And after the chips are being manufactured, they need to test whether does it work or not. So this one is under OSAT, Outsourced Semiconductor Assembly and Test. So with that, this is a simple graphic of how the semiconductor ecosystem actually looks like. So NVIDIA is actually under fabless. So they just design the chips. Okay, so now earlier on, some of you might be wondering, okay, I know what is a graphic processing unit, a graphic card, but what is the difference between a CPU and a GPU? Because most of us, we know that computer runs on CPU, but why do we need a GPU? So let's have a quick look on what are the difference between these two. So this is how a central processing unit looks like, where they have a few of the core processors, as you can see in the blue boxes. But for a GPU, they have even more core processors. So you can see it's even much more executing units on a GPU. So let's deep dive further on these two differences. So for a central processing unit, it is designed for single-threaded tasks. That means it's only focused on one simple task so that they can do it much more quickly. So some of the examples of the function is that like web browsing, like I just wanted to open the web, do some searching. I just send in the command and then the PC immediately generates the outcome that I want. Or maybe do some simple calculations on the spreadsheet. So this is what CPU actually works for. But for GPU, it actually designed this term called parallel processing. So what is parallel processing? Which means that when there's one problem or one task that they wanted to do, they break it down into smaller tasks and then they run on various core processing together at the same time. So this is known as parallel processing. So some of the examples are such as gaming, image processing. So imagine if you are to run a graphic on a CPU, if based on the past computers, you will definitely experiencing a lot of lagging, it's not smooth, or maybe even the graphic like the 3D is very, not very good, as realistic as we have currently. So with GPU, it's able to accelerate all these processes into a much faster. Okay, so now let's jump back right into NVIDIA. So its chips are mainly used in 4 main market platforms or computing platforms. So the first one is data center, which we saw in the CNBC video, where currently most of the revenue of NVIDIA is generated from this segment. So for data center, it's used to perform a lot of high performance computing. So imagine if you are to use the CPU to run all this high performance computing, like the graphics, the 3D simulations, you will need to have a lot of CPU to run it. But with GPU, you can easily use a simple GPU to run all these tasks. So with that, they are able to analyze a lot of data with AI, and LLM is large language model, which is generative AI. Okay, and also they are also used in gaming for much more realistic graphic visuals. And professional visualization here means 3D simulation, which if you watch one of our previous deep dive in 3D AI, or maybe even Palantir, or even with Adobe, you see that they do a lot of 3D simulations, and how they are able to produce all these programs, all these solutions, is because they are using these GPUs to help them work. And also automotive. So here is self-driving cars. So how much of the revenue had they been generated for the first quarter of 2024, which is just released 1 month ago? So they've generated about 7,192 million USD. And this is where the revenue generates from. So we can see that almost 60% of the revenue is actually generated from the data center. Then followed by gaming, professional visualization, and automotive. So if we compare from quarter to quarter, we can see that actually data center has actually increased compared to the previous quarter. Even though gaming, professional visualization has dropped for the past few quarters, but if we compare to the previous quarter, it actually slightly increases. Automotive also increased, but it stays relatively the same compared to the previous quarter. So this is the overall revenue generations from each of the market platform for NVIDIA. Okay, so now let's jump into the much more interesting part, which is their future plan. Okay, so now they are moving towards a new computing era. What does this mean? So here there's two parts, which is accelerated computing and generative AI. So for accelerated computing, it actually speeds up the computing. That means the compute that they need to work on. Like we saw earlier how the CPU works and how the GPU works. So here they actually accelerate the computing with full stack approach. So full stack approach is actually made up of 3 parts. The first part is silicon, which is a chip. So you can see here there's GPU, CPU, and DPU. So DPU is data processing unit, which mainly focus on processing the data. And then with all these chips that they have already designed, they will then proceed on to create acceleration libraries. So here it actually means that a collection of a lot of algorithms, the software functions, where the developers can easily use it to run it on a GPU to create a software or applications. And here there's a lot of application framework. Monai is an example of healthcare. Nemo is an example of language, like transcript, text, and as such, as you can see here. So with that, they can easily just pick one of the libraries, run the program, and then they can create an application accordingly instead of coding from the start. Okay, so here, generative AI, one of the examples that I got is that they are currently working together with Microsoft so that they are able to accelerate this AI initiative. Like we know that for ChatGPT, you just type in the text and then you get the answers that you want, or maybe get some coding or some audio or graphic. So this is just one part of example of what is the AI future has, but then my colleague will play a video to show you the futuristic of AI, what is possible from AI. So with that, I'll have my colleague to play the video, which is being nicely done by NVIDIA. So please enjoy.
I am a translator, transforming text into creative discovery. Movement into animation, and direction into action. I am a healer, exploring the building blocks that make us unique. modeling new threats before they happen. And searching for the cures to keep them at bay. I am a visionary, generating new medical miracles. And giving us a new perspective on our sun to keep us safe here on Earth. I am a navigator, discovering a unique moment in a sea of content.
We are announcing the next generation.
And the perfect setting for any story. I am a creator, building 3D experiences from snapshots and adding new levels of reality to our virtual selves. I am a helper, bringing brainstorms to life.
From different angles.
Sharing the wisdom of a million programmers. And turning ideas into virtual worlds.
Build a northern forest.
I even helped write the script. Breathe life into the words and compose the melody. I am AI, brought to life by NVIDIA, deep learning, and brilliant minds everywhere.
Hi, welcome back. I hope you have enjoyed this very nice video done by NVIDIA. When I first saw it, I feel like, wow, the future for AI is really, really impressive, I would say. So with that, let's further deep dive on how much of NVIDIA is going to contribute into this AI. Okay, so next up will be NVIDIA Cloud Services, where we will mainly focus on NVIDIA AI and also NVIDIA Omniverse. So here is a quick outline of how this NVIDIA Cloud actually looks like. Okay, so right now here they mentioned that the data center is the computer, because previously Bill Gates or Steve Jobs actually says that every household should have a PC, where at the moment, at that time, computer is actually consists of a big room, which is very unable to imagine that everyone will have a small PC like I have currently here. So now NVIDIA actually says that data center will be the future computer, and the network will define the data center. How does this actually work? So first, let's look at the cloud. So the cloud is actually what we know, like the Google Cloud, the AWS, Amazon Web Services, and also Microsoft Azure. Then they move on to AI Cloud. So here AI Cloud is merely a cloud plus the generative AI. So if we have this AI Cloud, so we imagine that if, let's say, the enterprises want to use this AI Cloud to help them to speed up with their data processing, or maybe they optimize their workflow, then it will bring us to AI Factory, which is even much more bigger in style. So we will explore more on AI Factory later. So let's look at how they are moving from CPU to GPU. So you can see here at the start in 1990s, according to Moore's law, the CPU performance will increase, but then we see that it slowly flattened out. So if we are to accelerate on the computing performance, we need something else. And this is where NVIDIA steps in, where they bring in the GPU. So here, according to what I found out from their investors' presentations, they mentioned that in the next few years or even decades, the GPU will further accelerate the computing performance of a computer. As you can see here, it's going straight up. Okay, so now here, we'll have a quick screenshot of what NVIDIA Cloud Service is comprised of. So NVIDIA will provide this NVIDIA AI and also NVIDIA Omniverse as a platform. And in order for this platform to work, they will have this on-prem, which is on-premise, which is made up of all this hardware. So here on-premise means that all this all this data service is being provided on-site or on the facility, like the servers, the power supply, the storages are being done on-site. So this is being provided by these hardware companies like Dell, HP, Enterprise, or Lenovo. But for the cloud, it's actually provided by these cloud service providers like the Google Cloud, AWS, Microsoft Azure, where they help the enterprise to store their data, help them to process on the cloud itself. If there's a combination between the on-premise and also the multi-cloud, it's known as the hybrid cloud. So they put all this AI infrastructure onto this cloud to run it, because the AI model is quite huge if you are to see in the later slides. Okay, so now let's jump into NVIDIA AI. So bear with me, because here it will be a bit more technical, but I try to make it as simple as possible. Okay, so here NVIDIA AI is actually a combination of all technologies, hardware and software, where they try to accelerate AI and also machine learning workloads. So this is a rough graphic, and we will move into NVIDIA AI foundations. So in order for this NVIDIA to work, they need to have certain foundations. So what is this foundation really about? Okay, so the foundation is actually made up of 3 parts. It's made of NeMo, which is mainly on languages. Picasso is on image and video 3D. So you can see here a very cute cat which is a very colorful fur. So was this being created by a creator or maybe graphic artist? Actually, it's being created by just words. So you just type in the words, and then this cat actually appeared. It looks something similar to Adobe. And next, BioNeMo is more on life sciences. So this one we will deep dive further on how this actually works. So here, this is actually a healthcare application framework for healthcare industry specialists to do imaging, genomics, and drug discovery. So here is roughly a graphic to show that how this BioNeMo actually works on the NVIDIA AI. So one example that I have is to have a drug discovery, because we know that for drug discovery, it takes many years, 10 years or more to create a drug that is suitable for the new diseases. So here they're actually using generative AI to help them to discover the target, the disease targets, so that they can be much more specific to find out what is causing these diseases to happen. Then from there, they are able to design the drugs according to the diseases using generative AI. And finally, after they have created the drugs, sometimes the drugs does not work onto the patients or even attack the diseases. So with generative AI, they are able to actually use a 3D simulations to find out whether does this drugs able to work accordingly. So when you hear here, you might be feeling like, I don't know what you're talking about. So with that, we also have another video which is much more illustrative to show that how these 3 parts where they uses generative AI to help with the healthcare industry to accelerate the drug discovery process. And with that, we'll watch another video prepared by NVIDIA on this NVIDIA BioNeMo. Please enjoy.
Drug discovery is incredibly hard. Bringing a new drug to market takes more than 10 years and has just a 10% success rate. Between the complexity of biology and the near infinite chemical and protein combinations, discovering drugs to help cure disease is a truly heroic endeavor. Accelerating this process is mission critical for drug developers. There are 3 key stages to drug discovery: discovering the biology that causes disease, designing new molecules, whether those are small molecules, proteins, or antibodies, and finally, screening how those molecules interact with each other. Today, generative AI is transforming every step of the drug discovery process. NVIDIA BioNeMo service provides state-of-the-art generative AI models for drug discovery. It's available as a cloud service, providing instant and easy access to accelerated drug discovery workflows. BioNeMo includes models like AlphaFold, ESMFold, and OpenFold for 3D protein structure prediction, ProtGPT for protein generation, ESM1 and ESM2 for protein property prediction, MegaMolBART and MoFlow for molecule generation, and DiffDock for molecule docking. Drug discovery teams can use the models through BioNeMo's web interface or cloud APIs. Here's an example of using NVIDIA BioNeMo for drug discovery virtual screening. Generative models can now read a protein's amino acid sequence and, in seconds, accurately predict the structure of a target protein. They can also generate molecules with desirable ADME properties that optimize how a drug behaves in the body. Generative models can even predict the 3D interactions of a protein and molecule, accelerating the discovery of optimal drug candidates. With NVIDIA DGX Cloud, BioNeMo also provides on-demand supercomputing infrastructure to further optimize and train models, saving teams valuable time and money so they can focus on discovering life-saving medicines. The new AI drug discovery pipelines are here. Sign up now for access to NVIDIA BioNeMo service.
Hi, welcome back. I hope after you have watched the video, you have a better understanding that how does this NVIDIA BioNeMo works in this context for healthcare industry. So here now we know that for NVIDIA foundations, it actually helps NVIDIA to build up all these generative AI to move forward all these AI initiatives. And now we will look into the NVIDIA AI enterprise how they are using this on the enterprise context. Okay, so here they say that modern AI is a data center scale computing workload. What does this mean? It means that they can put in the data and then they can generate the outcome after the AI has already processed all those data. Okay, so here this is roughly how it actually looks like. They have a few of these compile of these chips where they combine together, which is made out of these main 4 ones. So here L4 is actually for AI video, L40 is for image generation, and H100 NVL is for LLM, and Grace Hopper is for recommendation models. So recommendation models actually means that based on the data that they have received as an input, they are able to recommend what is suitable for the person that they want, like for example, recommendation of the preferences, the personalization. So this is what recommendation model actually looks like. Because early on in some of our deep dive, we've seen that when they move towards AI, they're able to process based on what does the customer prefer, and then they can generate the data accordingly so that they are able to direct the marketing according to the customer's preferences, which further accelerate or further enhance the customer experiences. Because imagine that if you receive certain advertisement that you do not like, you won't read it or you won't even click onto it, right? But if you receive some advertisement that is something that you're looking for, like maybe, for example, some sport equipment or maybe some clothing that you're looking for, will you be wanting to click onto it? So this is what recommendation model is about. So imagine if we are to stack all these parts together, it will make up into an AI supercomputer. So how does the data center work? Is actually work on all these AI supercomputer to accelerate all this computing, processing these data. Okay, so now where are they being used in the AI applications? Earlier on, we've seen the AI foundations, which is mainly made out of text, translations, coding, image generation, and also life sciences. And they are able to use on all these different applications, such as the contact center, the retail part, or medical imaging, and also transportations or product recommendations as such. Okay, so with that, we wrap up for NVIDIA AI, and now we will move on forwards towards NVIDIA Omniverse. So what is the difference between NVIDIA AI and NVIDIA Omniverse? It sounds like very futuristic. So here, NVIDIA Omniverse actually more focused on enterprise that helps the companies to digitalize their workflows in 3D world. That means they bring all of their workflows onto the virtual world, something like Meta's Metaverse, but right now it's more on the industry part. Okay, so now they are bringing, the workflow they are bringing on is from the design and also the engineering, because last time they need to design certain products before they make into production. But imagine if you bring in the whole of the factory onto the metaverse, it's going to take a lot of data to process it. So this is where NVIDIA Omniverse actually works. So here is an example. You can see that here in the factory is very huge. But with NVIDIA Omniverse, you can actually bring in all of these workflows onto the virtual world. So here is a rough explanation of what NVIDIA Omniverse actually is. It's actually a platform to help them to design before they make it into a physical item. So here, USD, you might be wondering, what is actually USD? USD is actually a short form for Universal Scene Descriptor, because in order for them to bring all these physical things into the virtual world, they need to describe how it actually looks like. So with that, they have this algorithm known as USD, so they can easily bring all these physical things onto the virtual world, so that they can try to design it before they make it into a real thing. Okay, so one of the examples that I have for tonight is in auto industry. So here we see that there are a lot of workflows within the auto industry, such as concept and how they design before they make it into being produced and also retail. So I have another video that further explains on what Omniverse is, and within this video that actually shows that how they design a factory, an automobile factory from virtual world before they bring it into a real world. So they gather all of the corporate intelligence together to design the factory in an optimal manner before they lay even a single brick. So with that, I hope you enjoy the next video by NVIDIA on Omniverse. Thank you.
The world's industries are accelerating digitalization with over $3.4 trillion being invested in the next 3 years. We at BMW strive to be leading edge in automotive digitalization. With NVIDIA Omniverse and AI, we set up new factories faster and produce more efficiently than ever. This results in significant savings for us. It all starts with planning, a complex process in which we need to connect many tools, datasets and specialists around the world. Traditionally, we are limited since data is managed separately in a variety of systems and tools. Today, we've changed all that. We are developing custom Omniverse applications to connect our existing tools, know-how and teams, all in a unified view. Omniverse is cloud native and cloud agnostic, enabling teams to collaborate across our virtual factories from everywhere. I'm about to join a virtual planning session for Debrecen in Hungary, our new EV factory opening in 2025. Let's jump in.
Milan is joining.
Hello everyone.
Hi Milan, great to see you. We're in the middle of an optimization loop for the body shop. Would you like to see?
Thanks, I'm highly interested. And I'd like to invite a friend.
Sure.
Hey Milan, good to see you.
Jensen, welcome to our virtual planning session.
It's great to be here. What are we looking at?
This is our global planning team who are working on a robot cell in Debrecen's digital twin. Matthias, tell us what's happening.
So we've just learned the production concept requires some changes. We are now reconfiguring the layout to add a new robot into the cell.
Okay, but if we add a new robot on the logistics side, we need to move our storage container.
All right, let's get this new robot in.
That's perfect. But let's double check. Can we run the cell? Excellent.
Milan, this is just incredible. Virtual factory integration is essential for every industry. I'm so proud to see what our teams did together. Congratulations.
We are working globally to optimize locally. After planning, operations is king. And we've already started. To celebrate the launch of our virtual plant, I'd like to invite you to open the first digital factory with me.
I'd be honored. Let's do it.
Hi, welcome back. I hope you enjoyed another video done by NVIDIA to showcase on what Omniverse really is. Because if I try to describe to you, you might be thinking, I had no idea what I'm talking about. But with that, you saw that how they actually bring the whole factory onto the virtual world to see how they are able to optimize the design before they decided to bring in and build up their factory. So with that, let's jump into the next part. So this is roughly the overall outlook of how the NVIDIA cloud actually works in terms of a business model. So we can see that here, this is where NVIDIA is, where they provide all the AI initiatives, the Omniverse for the enterprise customer. But in order for them to work on it, they need to have a cloud service provider to help them to provide this platform on the cloud. Then on the cloud itself, they add on all these AI initiatives and they offer it to their enterprise customers. So let's find out who are their enterprise customers that are currently using this NVIDIA AI and also the Omniverse. So these are the customers that was being provided by NVIDIA. And here we see that Adobe, they are actually using the Picasso, which you see the cute cat. And also Google Cloud, they actually use one of their chips, the L4, for the AI models. And here is mainly for the healthcare, which is the BioNemo. And here, the Microsoft, they are also using the Omniverse to help them to further accelerate on the cloud, the Microsoft Azure. Okay, so now with the more technical part being done, let's look at what are the AI startups that NVIDIA actually invested in. So this one is the first one, OmniML, and then the next one is Inflection AI. Okay, so now NVIDIA actually invested in OmniML for the model design compression. That means they compress the AI model into smaller parts. And next, they also invested into Inflection, which is the it's something similar to ChatGPT, but in a more personalized form. So let's find out more. So for OmniML, it's mainly focused on the edge AI. So here you might be wondering, what is edge AI? Imagine that AI is like on the cloud, but in order for us to use AI onto our computers, onto our PC, onto our smartphones, it's quite hard, right? So edge AI is actually for the devices, as you have seen here, all these things. And this is another example, like the smart home, the smart manufacturing as such. So edge AI is mainly to bring the AI onto the devices where we can use daily. So in order for them to do that, they need to have this model to be incorporated into these devices. But unfortunately, the AI model onto the cloud is very huge. As you can see what is being shown on the data centers, like it's a lot of computers, a lot of supercomputers. So it's quite hard for one to shrink it down, all this model, into devices. So in order for them to work, for AI to work on these devices, they need to make it into a smaller model. So with that, NVIDIA purchased this company is because they have this software to help them to shrink down all these large model so that it's easily used on these edge AI devices. As you can see, it becomes smaller, which is much more easier. And next, for Inflection AI, it's more on it's like a personal AI. Like for example, I have to give a toast at my best friend's wedding, so please write this speech. And they can say that a much more personal tone. So some of you might be wondering, if that's the case, what's the difference between Inflection AI and ChatGPT? And here they actually says that they are being more friendly, more empathetic. That means they are trying to become a friend. If they compare to ChatGPT, if you try to play around with ChatGPT, it makes me feel like I'm talking to a professor. It's very fact-based. It compiles everything that I know from Google and then presented in a much more humanized manner. That means it's like I'm talking to my professor. But if I want to talk to a friend, ChatGPT might not be a good friend because it's much more fact-based. But here, this Inflection AI, they will try to answer you in much more friendly terms, as if that the AI, the chatbot, is a friend. You're talking to a friend. Okay, so with that, we are done with the future plan. And now let's move on to find out their financials to see that whether is NVIDIA really financially strong. Okay, so now let's look at their business segments. So they actually reported all their products and solutions under two business segments. The first one is graphic, mainly on the graphic cards, such as the gaming, the graphic workstation graphics, cloud-based visuals, Omniverse, and also automotive. And next is the compute networking, which is mainly on the data center, the robotics, automotive AI, and also NVIDIA AI, and also the current cryptocurrency mining processors. Okay, so in 2023, which is just last year, they generated about $27 billion. And this is their breakdown of their business segment, where about 56% is being generated from compute and networking, and graphics is about 44%. In geographical region, you will see that majority is coming from US, followed by Taiwan, then other countries. And China also taking about 21.4% of their revenue. And for their latest quarter, Q1, the business segment, you can see that actually their compute and networking is generating even more revenue for the company, then followed by graphics. And in terms of geographical region, I found out that actually Singapore also contributed about 11% of the revenue for Q1. And the lion's share still belongs to US, Taiwan, and then China also contributed about 22%. So do take note of this percentage because we will explore more. Okay, so now let's look at their year-on-year revenue. So we can see that since 2014, the revenue has been on the positive and increasing trend, but then we noticed that there was a slight flat for the previous year. So this one we will also explore later. But overall, if we see at the overall trend, the revenue for NVIDIA is actually increasing. So that means the company is able to make sales to sell their products, their solutions. And if we are to look at their quarter to quarter, we can see that even though compared to Q1 of last year, there was a drop, but then they managed to recover for this latest quarter. Okay, so now let's look at their EPS. So here, EPS actually means that for every share that an investor purchased, how much of the earnings or the net income can the company generated? So for example, here, the latest EPS for NVIDIA is 1.76, which means that for every one share that an investor purchased, the company is able to generate about 1.76 of the earnings. So we see that since 2014, NVIDIA has experienced positive increasing trend until 2022, before there was a plunge in 2023. So why did this happen? If we are to look at from quarter to quarter, we realize that in these 2 quarters, there was actually a drop in their EPS. So this explains that why there was a drop in their EPS for 2023, which we will also further find out in our later slides. Okay, so now next, we will also look at their cash flow. So for tonight, for cash flow, we will look at 2 types of cash flow, which is their operating cash flow and their free cash flow. So for their operating cash flow, it means that the cash that the company is able to generate from their business activities. So if it's a positive, it's a good sign because there's money coming in. But if it's negative, that means the company is actually bleeding money to keep the operation running. So we see that the trend is similar to EPS, where they have been increasing from 2014 until 2022. But then there was also a drop. This is not something to be worried, because if we are to look at their quarter to quarter, even though there was a drop in 2023, their latest quarter actually has an increase compared to the previous quarter. So for the free cash flow, it is actually the operating cash flow minus off the capital expenditure. So capital expenditure is actually the expenses that the company used to purchase assets to help them to grow the business. So these assets will last more than 12 months or more. So similar trend as per operating cash flow, where it's in a positive increasing trend, but then they also have a drop here. So if we are to compare from their quarter to quarter results, we will see that October actually experienced a negative free cash flow, but then they managed to recover for the next few quarters, and there was an increment in their latest quarter as well. So this is something that investors should keep on take note of if they are interested in NVIDIA. And finally, we wanted to know how is their debt situation. So here we will look at their debt to equity ratio. So based on value investing methodology or the philosophy, we wanted to see that this ratio is less than 0.5. So to explain this in a layman's term, it means that for every $100 of equity that the company has, it cannot borrow more than $50 of the debt. If they borrow more than $50 of the debt, that means the company is having some very large debt. So here is the 0.5. We can see that most of the years, NVIDIA has a very, the debt to equity ratio is below 0.5, but then there's a slow increment. But as long as the company is still able to generate sales, to bring in cash from their business activities, and the management is able to manage the debt well, this one is not something to be concerned of, because maybe the company is borrowing money to further grow the company. Okay, so now if we are to look at quarter to quarter, even though there was 2 quarters has been slightly more than 0.5, they managed to bring it down below 0.5 for the latest quarter. So with that, we are done with their numbers, and now let's look at some of the potential risks, because whenever we invest in a company, other than looking at their futuristic potential, we also wanted to know that is there any risk that I need to take note of so that I can sleep soundly at night after I've invested in the company. So the first thing is that do take note that this is a chip designer company. They do not manufacture their own chips. So they actually design all this advanced. So early on when you saw all these videos, all the graphics that was being shown, which is very nicely done, very impressive and futuristic, but then we have to take note that are the semiconductor fabs able to produce these advanced chips on time? So here is the semiconductor ecosystem that was being shown earlier. So NVIDIA only designed the chips. So the chips is only on paper. They have not made the physical one. In order to make the physical one, they work quite closely with TSMC to help them to produce all those chips. So this is the first question you should ask, that can the current semiconductor technology catch up with this advanced AI chip design? Because in order to make these AI chips, they need to make it very small so that it's more energy efficient and much more powerful. And also right earlier on in the video, they mentioned that there's a slightly supply crunch at the moment. Okay, so the next potential risk is that the performance of the semiconductor industry is actually cyclical in nature. As you can see here, earlier on the video says that they are having the semiconductor supply crunch does not mean that they are able to produce the semiconductor chips immediately. They need to have some time to produce it, then they can sell it. So here is where the production level is. But then if they overproduce all those chips, it will become an oversupply. So when it's oversupply, then there's not much people wanted to purchase it. So you can see that it's in a cyclical manner. So earlier on, we saw that there was a drop in their EPS for FY 2023. And one of the reasons was because there was a drop in their PC sales. So here is the chart that I got from Canalys, that they showed that on data, the sales for the PC based on quarter to quarter actually was a drop here. So if you were to look at the worldwide semiconductor sales, revenue here actually refers to sales. They're also still experiencing a sales since 2022. And the latest one was a drop of 21.3% year on year for March 2023. So another question that one should ask is that actually the chip demand is highly reliable on PC sales at the moment. And then the final risk that I managed to identify is, earlier on the video actually says that the CHIP Act. So here, earlier on we know that TikTok is being affected and was being put onto court. And now NVIDIA and also AMD is also being affected. It's because this CHIP Act. So if you're wondering what is CHIP Act, actually we covered this in one of our deep dive series in TSMC, where we explained that what CHIP Act is and how it will affect the semiconductor industry. So here with this, US actually increased the restriction on AI chips to be exported to China. If you've seen earlier on the revenue generation, we see that on the geographical region, actually China contributed about 22% of the revenue to NVIDIA. So if they cannot sell the chips to to China, it's going to affect their revenue. As you can see here, 22%. And they are actually their third largest purchaser. So this may affect the NVIDIA's revenue, so do take note. So to wrap it up all for tonight's deep dive, some of the pros is that currently the NVIDIA chips are being used in ChatGPT, so it launches the booming of the generative AI, and they are actually the leading fabless company in developing the AI technology. And they are actually focusing more on growing the data centers at the moment compared to in the past where they're focusing on designing the graphic chips. However, do take note that they are actually a fabless company, so they need to rely on fab to manufacture the chips. And the semiconductor industry is actually cyclical in nature. And finally, do take note of the US and China's chip war tension. So with that, I've completed my presentation for tonight, and I hope that you have gained massive value from understanding how the future of NVIDIA is, and I pass back the baton back to Caden. Thank you, everyone.
Hi, this is Kaden Chang. Okay, welcome back. Now I just need my colleague's help, right, to put my slide back on the screen over here. Yeah, so if you're able to see the slide right now, you can see that I'm referring to Hillary's last slide, which is the conclusion, and then we talk about pros and cons. Now, before I go into detail, I just want to let you know that in order for us to invest in any company, it requires quite a number of understanding. So the first thing is, do you really understand the business? This is very important. Now, the question sounds simple, right? But after listening to Hillary, do you really have a clear understanding of what NVIDIA does for a living? Yeah, so that's one. And number two, if we are supposed to buy the stocks, or if you're interested in buying NVIDIA stock, whatever, Palantir stock, whatsoever, so we must take note that when we buy the stocks today, you are buying the stocks into the future. We are buying the stocks future. And we are buying the stocks future based on our understanding of the past, which means that if we do not understand the past, it's as though we try to marry someone without dating, right? That's a very high risk. So our job tonight is really like a dating process. We try to understand what we are doing. And then if we are highly comfortable, of course, the next question is it cheap or is it expensive? So first one, you have to ask yourself, do you understand the business? So if you are being forced to give only 3 answers, it's either yes, is either no, or is it too complex, too techy? Wow, this is very IT stuff. So it's either yes, no, or unsure. Now, deep down inside, if it's a no or unsure, right, that means you should skip this company altogether, regardless of whatever people say. Yeah. So we're going to play a very simple game, and for all of our YouTube live, right, we always play this game. So I just need my colleague helps to put out a poll, right? Now, if you look at this slide, you can see again we are using Charlie Mungers, which is the Vice President of Berkshire Hathaway. He come out with a framework, right? So he gave out a framework which is actually a risk-reward framework. Okay, the poll should be up. So what does it mean, right? Ultimately, when we want to make money, obviously we want to lower the risk. Yeah, and if we are able to lower the risk, automatically the reward, right, or the ROI will take care of itself. So lowering risk is very important because it's very easy to lose money. So there are 3 baskets over here. There's a basket A, there's a basket B, and there's a basket C. Yeah. So based on a poll, I just need your help to just select which one before I tell you the valuation, because the analysis for tonight is still not complete yet. Andy, thanks for appreciating our work. By the way, for those people who have already submitted poll, if you don't mind, right, help us to do a thumbs up. Yeah. I'm not very sure some of you, have you like sort of visited other people's YouTube channel and so on. So you realize that sometimes other people talk about technical analysis, the share price. But price tells nothing about the business. Yeah, only the business tells us something about the business. So remember, as investor, right, our job is to be a business analyst. We want to analyze the company. Our job is not a stock price analyst. Yeah, stock price analyst. So see, only 4 votes. Hey, we got 100 people. You all never help me press the vote. Anybody, you should be able to see the poll, right? Can you all see the chat? If you all click on the chat, you all should be able to see the poll. Just help me press. Yeah, ABC, so that you all have analysis. Okay, 8 votes. It's okay. I just give you 5 seconds, right? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so I'll just let my colleague post the answer. It should come out in the chat. Now, in summary, a high risk, low return, obviously this is a no. Yeah, high risk, high return is as good as gambling, so it's a no. So unless you pick A, right? Yeah, which is a buy, B and C, you should totally avoid it. Yeah, so that applies for any company that you come across. Yeah, previously we talked about Palantir, we also talked about Adobe, so there are many companies. Yeah, so ultimately we want one. So regardless of whatever result, if you choose A, then it's a buy for you. If you choose C, then maybe not, okay? But remember, in the very beginning of the video, I shared that ultimately we want to buy a good business at a cheap price. If not, you will turn a good investment into a bad investment decision. So let's look at the valuation. But before that, I just want to share 2 slides in which I really like it that is being done by Hillary. So Hillary has clearly stated, right, that NVIDIA is not a cheap manufacturer. So they do not do the hardware, the physical part of it. They are a chip designer. Yeah, so in order for NVIDIA, right, to be appreciated, to be able to make money, I assume that they have to pass this design, right, to someone who can manufacture, who can like print out, from the design, which is in this case a TSMC, which is the market leader. So in other words, if there's a supply chain problem, they cannot produce because you cannot happy say, come tomorrow, let me set up a plant. If they cannot produce more, then whatever this fella do, right, it's not appreciated by the chip manufacturer because they cannot catch up, huh? Yeah, so that's one thing. Remember, chip designer and the chip manufacturer, they're two separate things, right? Now, then the next one, which is quite interesting. So Hillary has pointed out that in the semiconductor industry is a cyclical industry. So sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. And I still remember, right, I think during the pandemic days, we haven't go through the endemic. You know, it was really hard to buy a laptop. Yeah, so I have to rush to the Harvey Norman trying to buy a laptop. It was very difficult. It's almost out of stock. Yeah, but right now, right now the supply problem is solved. You can buy a laptop anytime. Yeah, so it's really difficult. It's really difficult to try to time the cyclical nature of the business. Oh, you know, NVIDIA, maybe I can buy here, you know, or I buy here. So it's really difficult. Yeah, really difficult. So these are the risks. Yeah, so remember, if you are able to manage the risk, then maybe the return will come. So these are two slides that I really like from Hillary's slide. So let's talk about the valuation. Let's assume that the business is good. Now, from Morningstar's perspective, so let's look at the intrinsic value. So you can see here, right, a Morningstar's intrinsic value is 485. So what they're trying to say is, if you want to buy one stock, right, one stock is worth 485. And right now the share price is about 45.27. So in other words, it's not very high, it's not overvalued, it's not undervalued, it's a fair value around this region over here. So that is Morningstar's perspective. Yeah. Now remember, it's other people's perspective, no? So whether you want to buy based on other people's perspective, in which they may not buy the stocks that they talk about, so I leave it to you, right? So you can see over here, right? Oh, this one I put the wrong one. I think I put Adobe, right? Yeah, I think I made a mistake. Huh? It's supposed to be NVIDIA, right? Yeah, so why did I put Adobe? Yeah, sorry, huh? Yeah, maybe I show you another one, right? So let me just exit from my slide for a short while. How come my time zone is a bit different? Okay, but don't worry, just give me a few seconds, right? So I think I'm still living in the last YouTube live. Don't worry. NVDA. Okay, I just show you a screenshot. Okay, got it. So I was talking NVIDIA, suddenly there's this Adobe. Okay, good. Okay, so let me just put this up again. My apologies. Let me just make sure that I share. Okay, good. So right now, I think you should be able to see, right? Now, if you look at the website over here, yeah, you can see here, last close was 425. That means this is the share price. Yeah, correct. So it's my mistake, I showed you the wrong one. So if you look at this one, it says that the fair value is 300. Yeah, 300. That means the intrinsic value is 300, but right now it's 425. So based on Morningstar perspective, it's overvalued. It's a good business, but it's too expensive, so you just have to wait. And then here, very interesting, here it says that the company has a wide moat. Wide moat, that means it has a durable competitive edge as of today. But in future, 10 years down the road, we are not sure. We're not sure. So somebody say, AB, talisman say cannot press. Yeah, okay, cannot press. This some press a bit expensive. Okay, so that is Morningstar. Let me just put back to Guru Focus. Okay, my slide is up. Got it. Okay, I just need to make sure that my colleague has helped me share the screen. Yeah, so sorry. Yeah, the next one, the Guru Focus one is correct, NVIDIA. This one is a mistake, Adobe. Yeah, so Guru Focus. So Guru Focus shared that the intrinsic value is 277, which is depicted by this black line over here, right? So right now the share price is on top. Yeah, it's on top, so it's overvalued. So Morningstar say overvalued, Guru Focus said that it's overvalued. And you can see here, significantly overvalued. So remember, if it's overvalued, you buy, what does it mean? It simply means that when a company is overvalued, that means the expectation of the stock market is already built inside. They assume that the next maybe a few years, you will be Sunday every single day. In other words, if they miss one quarterly's earning, right, the share price may drop. Yeah, may drop drastically, in which the slide I've shared right in the very beginning, right, will drop drastically. So let me just share other data so that you have a complete picture, then you decide whether you want to do. Now, For any growth stock, in this case, which is NVIDIA, right, we look at one ratio called the PEG ratio. Yeah, PE is the PE that I've shared, which is the price per share divided by earnings per share. So PE, huh? So PEG ratio is actually PE ratio divided by the growth rate. So in other words, let's assume that the growth rate, right, maybe in the past is, or your projected growth rate is, let's say 20% per year. 20% per year, huh? And the PE, let's say ratio is 20. So 20 divided by 20 at the bottom percentage, then your PEG ratio is equal to 1. Yeah, but as a value investor, we want to make money. We don't want to buy it's expensive. We want to buy cheap things. Huh? So when we want to buy cheap things, the PE ratio, we expect it to be less than. We don't want to be equal to 1. We want it to be less than 1. But in this case, the forecasted one is 2.93. Yeah, so based on another valuation criteria is again overvalue. Yeah, overvalue. Huh? So if you look at the NASDAQ, so this is NASDAQ forecast, right? Yeah, PE ratio 173 to me is really high. A forecast growth rate, well, this is quite interesting. Huh? They say the growth rate is 157%. Forecast, oh sorry, this is PEG. Yeah, PEG rates. Yeah, it's again too expensive. Huh? Too expensive, right? Yeah, so let's look at another one. So we look at various parts of an elephant so that we have a complete picture of how the elephant looks like. Now, this is the PE ratio they have tracked for the past 10 years. So remember, the higher the PE, the more expensive it is. Yeah, but it's very relative, huh? So you can see today, the PE ratio is 221. And if you just look at all the lines, all along, right, the PE ratio is maybe below 100. And then suddenly, this one, you spike up. Yeah, so in other words, it's really expensive, you know. It's really expensive. Huh? Whether the share price will go up, down, I have no idea. But the question is, at this kind of PE ratio, is this something that you want to participate? Yeah, so my perspective is, I think it's a bit expensive. Huh? Yeah, so remember at the end of the day, we must understand what NVIDIA is. We must know what is this. Only when we know what the company is, then we know what to do. Huh? And it's also important to know what not to do. For example, based on the valuation, we know that, yeah, assuming there's a good company, but it's overpriced. So we shouldn't buy. And somebody say cannot price, right? Talisman say cannot price. Huh? Now, then assuming that you have the cash to do it. Huh? But don't worry. So I'm going to share with you a piece of good news, right? Now, in case you find that NVIDIA is not suitable to your taste, I'm going to share with you a piece of good news in the next 5 minutes. Now, in the coming, I think 1 or 2 weeks, we are going to organize an on-site event, which is called Empower Your Financial Future. And for this event, it's a no sales. So you don't have to bring any money or whatever. Just bring yourself. A no sale, a non-profit event. And the reason why we want to organize this event is because we want to allow more people to really learn about investing, so that investing doesn't become a myth or a fear and so on. So before we continue, I just want to let you know that if we want to become an investor, it's important for us to do some form of allocation or portfolio of our cash. So for example, in our 4 days value investing program, we always talk about keeping one portion of cash. And then after that, we may consider something called ETF or exchange traded funds. Yeah. And Warren Buffett like to recommend a very low cost S&P 500 index fund. And of course, you can slot in NVIDIA over here. And just now, I put in Adobe and so on. Yeah. So these are the 3 segments. And this Empower Your Financial Future is very interesting. Is because we have a special speaker, and then we're going to slot inside all of these 3 segments, so that by the end of one evening, you already know what to do. Okay, so I'm going to go through one by one. Now, whether you're grads, non-grads, so don't worry, right? Yeah. So this event is going to take place on the 25th of July, 2023. Yeah. Let me finish first, then my colleague will post the link. Yeah. So remember, 25th July, 2023, right? It's going to take place at our office, which is a fiscal office. Yeah, it's called Empower Your Financial Future. We're going to build a portfolio in just 3 hours. So let me just introduce the first speaker, which is Hillary. Actually, Hillary already self-introduced. Yeah. So the first speaker, which is Hillary, she's going to talk about something called T-bills. Yep. She's going to cover this part, cash. Now, this portion of the portfolio is not to make anyone rich, but we are trying to find a better alternative. Preferably, right, the product is by MAS so that everybody feels safe and so on. And one of the product, right, there is sold by MAS is actually something called T-bills or treasury bills. Yep. So Hillary, on that evening, she's going to talk specifically about T-bills so that eventually this cash can be checked off. So this is one part of the entire portfolio. So that's one. Now then the second one, right? We're going to talk about ETF, exchange traded funds. Now, if you are a graduate, you will hear from me many times. I keep talking about ETF. I think since the beginning of time. And for those people who have invested, let's say, in a low-cost S&P 500 index fund, right? You have went through the bear run, you will buy it cheap, and right now it's the beginning of the bull run. The bull run started in June last month. Yeah, in June, So I'm going to talk about ETF, but this time now I'm going to introduce one special ETF in addition to the low-cost S&P 500 index fund. Yeah, so that's me, and I'll check off the second one. And the last one, which is quite precious, but before I go into this part, just to let you know that in case any one of you want to buy any shares or own a piece of the business, right, you have to go through a middleman. And this middleman is called a broker. For example, Philips Securities is an example of a broker. DBS Vickers Online is an example of a broker. And in Singapore, we have a US broker. For example, we have a TD Ameritrade, whose software is called Think or Swim. We have interactive brokers. So these are brokers. So in US, there are 4 biggest brokers. Sometimes in the industry, we call them the big 4. You know, in accounting firm, we have these big 4. Like, for example, PricewaterhouseCoopers is a big 4. It's a big 4. So in US, brokers also have a big 4. Yeah, I mean, big 4, so what? So that you don't have to worry that later on the broker go bust. And we are lucky to have invited a representative from one of these big 4 brokerage firms to come and speak in our humble training office. And this person, his name is called Leonard. Yeah, we have known Leonard since the very first day when TD Ameritrade got a license to operate in Singapore. So we know him very well. And it's quite difficult to invite TD Ameritrade, which is the big 4, right? Yeah, to come and speak on our humble little place. So I think on that day, we have Leonard who's going to join us for the evening, and he's going to talk about some sectors that has performed well in history and how moving forward is going to help you, right, grow your wealth. Okay, so very interesting. So that is Leonard. So in short, right, we will cover this. We will cover cash, which is T-bills. I'll cover ETF. And for Leonard, instead of covering one company, he will cover the sectors, which consists of many companies. Yeah, that will give us, I think, pretty good return. So again, that will take place on the 25th of July, 7 p.m. to 10 p.m. So remember, it's no sales, so we're not going to promote anything. So I just need my colleague, right, to just put up the link. Yeah, put up the link, right? Yeah. Now, the link that eventually will show up in the live chat is a link for non-grads. So in other words, if you're not our trainee attendee, you're not a graduate of our 4-day value investing program, the link is available for you. It's already there. You just need to click on it. Click on it. Remember, no sales, non-profit, right? Yeah, so you just click on it, just fill up your name and so on. Now, if you are our graduate, don't worry. We also have a special link for you, so don't worry, right? Now, what you need to do is, if you are a grad, all of you would be inside this Facebook closed group, right, which is called VIA Singapore. VIA Singapore. So at the VIA Singapore, I already pinned up the post and I put it on top. You should be able to see something like this. You see Caden, right? You should be able to see something like this. Yeah. So of course, if you click on this see more, you'll be able to expand the post. And then once you expand the post, there'll be a link. So just click on the link and then register. Register, right? Yeah. Now, for those people who are public, members of the public or grads, now, because this is a no sale, right? This is a no sale, non-profit event. We just want people to know more about us. Now, if you have any friends, your families, your spouse, your partners, children, or whatever, please feel free to bring them over to our space so that one of the big 4 brokerage company together with me and Hillary, we can share with you what investing is all about. Okay, so please feel free to share the link and so on. So with that, right, we're going to end our segment for today, which is our deep dive on NVIDIA. So again, the people who are serving you tonight is me, Hillary over here, Susie, as well as Irfan. So remember, we are VIA. VIA represents Value Investing Academy, and our mission, right, is to help all of you by caring to make you a better investor. So if you have any question, please feel free to email to enquiries@mindkinesis.com. And remember, the link is over there So if you are Grab, please go inside the closed group right now. You can use your phone or whatever, expand out, click on the link, register, and we shall see you. Okay? So have a good rest, everyone. So I shall see you in our next deep dive series. Goodbye.